So now I'm going to move on to talking about vibrato. As I mentioned earlier, vibrato and bending techniques are extremely similar. I really use the exact same technique for both of them, and of course we end up combining them when we have bent notes with vibrato. The major difference here is while the thumb's purpose for a bend is to provide that counter pressure to stop the neck from moving up, for vibrato it is purely to provide control. We can still have a really nice vibrato without the thumb, but if we want to vary the speed or the width of that, we're going to struggle a lot more without the thumb. While bending is very much an exercise of precision, we have to be precise on our bends, we don't want out of tune bends. Vibrato is primarily an exercise of taste. The way to really improve your vibrato and have a good vibrato is, first of all, to identify and listen to guitar players as well as other instrumentalists and vocalists who you think have great vibratos. So everyone will have a bit different a taste in what they like to hear with vibrato, but the crucial part is listening to some players that you really respect and like their vibrato. So for me, some of the guitarists that I look up to for vibrato of older school players, I love B.B. King's vibrato, one of the most iconic vibratos out there, and his really proves that point of being able to know who the player is hearing one note because it's such a signature sound. Also love Stevie Ray Vaughan's. And for more modern players, Eric Gales has a fantastic vibrato. Now, another inspiration source for me has really been vocalists and singers. So listening to older jazz or blues singers, for me, Etta James, as well as actually Elvis Presley, he was one of the first singers I got into, and noticing how detailed the vibrato is and how it really fits the song and the context. So as I was saying earlier with the dimmer switch analogy for bends, for vibrato we can have anywhere from a fast to slow vibrato and also anywhere from a wide to very narrow vibrato. And you don't want to just have one vibrato, you want to be able to fit your vibrato in context. For example, if I'm playing over a slow blues and I use a Zakk Wylde style super wide fast vibrato, 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you heard there, the vibrato I played wasn't a bad vibrato, but it didn't really fit the style. It would be the same thing as if I played a super slow vibrato over like a fast up-tempo swing tune. So that might be a really nice sounding vibrato if we were playing over a ballad, but in that context it just doesn't work. So always be aware of the context you're playing in and make sure to record yourself, because often in the moment of playing we aren't able to self-analyze as well as we think we are. But if you record it either into a recording program or just with your cell phone, you'll be able to listen back and really hear what you like about it and what you maybe have to improve. So to use vibrato, we are going to use that same motion of kind of the royal wave, and I'm just going to fret the note, and then the string is just going to come with my finger as I turn my forearm. And again, we have both down vibrato towards the floor, which is going to mostly be what we want to do, and some spots where we have to do it towards the ceiling. There is one note in particular on the guitar where we want to try to avoid it and also spend a lot of time practicing it so that we can have a good vibrato on that note, even though it's really tricky. And that one is the first finger on the high E string. So here I'm on the 8th fret of the E string. And the reason this is so hard is that just with the first finger, we don't have any other fingers bracing that gives the vibrato a bit more control. And we can't go down at all, or it's going to do this thing where I'm just pulling the string off the side of the neck. So we have to really practice the control of being able to bend up and not let it down far enough where we're pulling it off the neck like this. So often I will find that note on the B string. So here it would be at the 13th fret, and there I could play it with either 3rd or 4th finger vibrato, which is going to sound a lot better, or use a whole step bend in that pentatonic box shape right at the 11th fret. Now, another thing with vibrato that we haven't touched on yet is the difference between unbent notes with vibrato and bent notes with vibrato. Guitar is unique compared to a lot of other string instruments, such as violin, cello, where because we have frets, we can't move around the note like a singer. And many instruments actually are more on the side of flattening the note and moving it back to the unvibratoed pitch. So for us, because we have frets, all we can do when we're playing an unbent note with vibrato is take the pitch, make it sharper, and move back to the unbent pitch. For really dramatic notes and to get a bit more expression out of it, that's where we use bent notes with vibrato. Now for bent notes with vibrato, since we're using the same technique for both, it's really not that tricky. All you're going to do is bend the note up to your target pitch and then start unbending and rebending a bit. And again, this is something you really have to use your ear for because it is very much dependent on taste and listening to make sure you're staying around the target pitch. But that is how you can create some really dramatic sounding notes, and also why usually in blues when a player is at like the climax of a solo, they're going to use those bent notes so that it's the biggest sounding and most controllable emotional note that they can possibly get. The one last thing to watch out for with your vibrato is making sure that you're going between the same two pitches. Now, you can start playing around with this a bit more if you're, say, easing into a vibrato, so going from an unbent pitch to narrow and then widening. But the point is that you don't want this really nervous sounding vibrato where you're getting some that are really narrow and some that are really wide all at the same speed like this. It just doesn't sound very stable, and it's not going to give you the kind of bluesy sound you're looking for. So to practice that, you can either start off by taking, say, a half-step bend and working just on hitting that exact target, or once you get better at that, something like a quarter step kind of in between, but always keeping that same pitch difference between the unvibratoed note and the vibratoed note. So touching a bit more on how we can ease into a note with vibrato, this is something where if you're listening to a lot of good singers, you will frequently hear this where they hit their pitch and then add some vibrato, and also sometimes go from having a pretty gentle vibrato to a bit more dramatic one. You can do this both for unbent notes and also bent notes. Sometimes immediate vibrato on bent notes while you're still working on your bending accuracy can actually be a downfall because you'll end up never really finding the pitch you're going for. So it can be a great idea to, if you're playing this bend here, to find the pitch you're going for and then add some vibrato. And it creates a really nice sound, especially if you're playing over, say, a ballad or a slower song, slow blues definitely. If you're playing over, say, in more of an up-tempo swing or uptown, downtown shuffle, anything like that, you're probably going to want to keep it a bit more immediate with the vibrato. But again, any of this stuff, you want to use your ear and rely on taste to decide what is good and what is not so good.